welcome to the show Brandon Arnold. He's the Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I wouldn't dare hang up on you.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Well, no, because we got a lot to talk about. This big, beautiful bill. We were all waiting on pins and needles to see if it passed. It did, as Trump promised. And you've been talking a lot about this bill. There's good, bad, and ugly in there. But you say there's a lot of good stuff in here to be happy about. Can you maybe break down what you at the National Taxpayers Union are clocking on in this bill? What's looking good to you?
Yeah, I agree. I think you put it up, teed it up very nicely there. There's definitely some things I don't like, but focusing on the positive here, the big thing is we avert a $4 trillion tax increase that was scheduled to take effect at the end of this calendar year. That is enormous because that would have sent our economy into a recession almost guaranteed. We cannot afford that big a tax increase. When you talk about our families that are struggling with the lingering effects of the Biden economy, when you talk about our small businesses that are struggling to employ so many Americans and pay for all the materials that they need, we couldn't afford that big tax cut, that tax increase. And now we get a tax cut. I think we go in the positive direction with a bigger child tax credit. That's really going to help families. We did some stuff on the business side here, making permanent some of the most pro-growth provisions in the 2017 law, again, that were scheduled to expire, to put us on a level playing field with China and our international rivals, to make sure that we reward, don't punish companies that make investments in the United States, whether that's machinery, farm equipment, research and development. We want all that to take place on American soil, and I think because of this tax bill, we're going to see a lot more of that type of activity.
There's definitely a lot of great stuff in there. And I think we're all happy it passed. That's the thing. That's the thing, isn't it, Brandon, about being an adult? You understand that you get, good things and bad things, and sometimes they come together, and sometimes you have to take the bad to get the good. So let's talk a little bit about some of the bad things in here. There's definitely no shortage of criticisms for this bill, and we're going to talk about Mr. Elon Musk in a second here, but he was one of the big ones that was very disappointed in this bill. He didn't think it did nearly what we need to have it do. You say that I didn't know this was in this, by the way, until I read your words, but you say that there's a green energy loophole in here that you're not very pleased with. Tell our listeners a little bit about that.
Yeah, this happened at the very end of debate in the Senate. And this bill was supposed to rip all of those green energy tax credits that Biden put into place through the Inflation Reduction Act. It was supposed to rip those out as quickly as possible. And they created this big loophole for solar and wind projects that basically says if you start a project within 1 year of enactment of this bill, which of course was July 4th, then you can still qualify for some of these tax benefits. I think that's a huge problem. One of the problems is, what does it mean to start a project? Does that mean buying some of the materials? Does it actually mean putting a shovel in the ground to start the project? Does it just mean saying, hey, I'm going to do this project? So there's a lot of interpretation that will fall upon the IRS and the Department of Treasury to decide who's going to get this credit and who's not. I think that's a huge mistake, and it could be a costly one that ends up extending the life of these solar and wind tax credits. Again, we needed to get rid of those to generate the extra revenue that we can use for the good tax policies. Unfortunately, we didn't get the job done as much as I would have liked.
That sounds like a China thing to me. I don't know how analytical you want to get about this, but that feels like China's got their hands in the cookie jar. And it seems to be like when it comes to China, that's the one place we can't shake, the embedded corruption. I don't know what you think about that, but the fact that wind and solar are carved out, that feels like a very Chinese problem.
Yeah, I don't know the source of it. There's so many people that are getting rich off of these subsidies that there's a real vested interest in Washington to keep them around as long as they possibly can. And my opinion is the quicker you rip them out, the more likely you are to have a durable impact on these programs. The longer they sit out there, the more people that you have that take advantage of them. And because of that, you have more beneficiaries and more political momentum to keep them in place. So that's a big disappointment for me, and I'm hoping that we can bring additional legislation to the forefront, as well as having a Treasury and IRS now under this president that is not going to make this loophole as big as they possibly can. That's unfortunately what we saw during the Biden administration with some of those electric vehicle, the EV tax credit. They created huge loopholes that skirted a lot of the Buy America requirements, that skirted some of the income requirements, basically super rich people being able to get this credit, even though the law supposedly said that it's only available to middle class, upper middle class, and below. The Biden administration misinterpreted that, and it cost us billions and billions of dollars.
And of course, we know that Elon Musk is upset about the EV subsidies being stripped out. And perhaps it makes a little more sense that he's upset knowing that the Senate still made these carve outs for solar and wind. Perhaps that's part of Elon's annoyance. Why did they get it and he didn't get the carve out? But speaking of Elon, I cannot let you go without talking about Elon's third party bid here with the America Party, because it is directly tied to this idea of the big beautiful bill. He was very upset about this bill. He's made no secret about it. He thinks it doesn't go nearly as far enough. In fact, he calls it a betrayal. What are your thoughts about that description? Would you join him in that description? And do you think his third party is viable?
I would not go nearly as far as Elon in criticizing this bill. Though I share some of his criticisms, I do think there's too big an impact on a deficit in this bill. And I think that means that it's really, really important for Republicans in Congress, as well as this president, to get together and drive down the deficit. Spending cuts, I think, are the best way to do so. Far and away, we have the largest amount of spending in Washington that we've had since 1946. With the exception, of course, of the pandemic and the financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. So we need to get a handle on spending, and I think that's one of Elon's criticisms here. But of course, as you mentioned, he's also criticizing the bill for not for repealing the EV tax credits and for zeroing out some of these green energy provisions that he likes some of those. I do not. I think we got to scrap all of those, and I think he's being a little over the top. Obviously, he has a personal beef with the president right now, which is very much coloring his actions with regard to this bill, as well as the creation of a third party. I don't know if it's going to be viable or not. There's certainly frustration on the left with the Democratic Party. There's frustration within the Republican Party with the way Congress and this president operate sometimes. That's just a permanent part of having a two-party system. There's always disgruntled members of either party. But I don't know if this third party is going to take off. I think it's going to be a very, very tricky proposition. It's been tried many, many times and never been successful.
Yeah, I feel that Elon is sort of banking on his personality, the attractiveness to the average American of his personality. And I think a lot of his personality gravitas, if you will, is due to Trump, to be honest. So I'm not sure if Elon's as exciting to many Americans when he's divorced from the Trump administration. I guess we'll see. But this does bring me to another question about the debt ceiling, because this is another thing Elon was saying. If you're going to raise the debt ceiling, then what's the point of doing anything? So you're an expert. You're a tax guy, right? You're the vice president of the National Taxpayers Union, Brandon Arnold, for those of you who are wondering who I'm talking to. So explain to me the debt ceiling, and I just don't know. Should I be worried about this? I'm 50 years old now. When I came into the conservative movement, I came in on the Tea Party. We were talking about the debt ceiling then. We were arguing about raising the debt ceiling then. And we did it, and everyone felt betrayed, but we still all went back to our parties. We still all went back to our corners and fought again another day. So what is the point of the debt ceiling? And what happens if we don't raise it? Could we just not raise it?
Yeah, well, we need to raise it, but we need to not raise it too much, because I think it is a valuable tool. It's a tool which tells us, hey, you're butting up against your credit card limit. You're borrowing so much that you are maxing out your credit card. And yes, you can go back to your bank and say, hey, I need more money on my credit card. But if they ever just say, hey, you have an unlimited amount of money, if you are as irresponsible as Congress is, that is a recipe for disaster. You need to have that process by which they come back to the American people and say, we need more money. And that should be an exercise which requires some degree of fiscal change. If the bank keeps seeing you coming back and saying, give me 10,000 more, give me 10,000 more on my credit card limit, eventually they're going to say, hey, you need to change the way you're spending money. You can't just keep coming back to us asking for more. And that's what we've seen in the past. We've seen some budget reforms that have taken place. Even when we had Obama as president in 2011, we had the Budget Control Act that put caps on spending, the so-called sequester. It wasn't perfect, but at least it was something. So I think it is important to keep that ceiling in place. Yes, you need to bump it up because if we default on our credit, that could be disastrous. That would really, really hurt the financial standing of this country, make it much, much more expensive to issue debt because we would lose that faith that borrowers have when they purchase treasuries and other government securities. So yes, we need to raise the debt ceiling, but we need to simultaneously enact spending reductions and other more fiscally responsible policies as we do so.
Brandon, before I let you go, is there gold in Fort Knox or no?
I have no idea about that one, but I would love to see them
Everybody
bring
forgot
a
about
camera and
that.
some sort of television crew. Bring a crew in there and see what we got. That would be absolutely fascinating. But yeah, I wish I could give you a good answer on that one. I don't know.
I just feel like everyone forgot about it. We were talking about it for a hot minute there, and we still don't know if it's there.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you. Yeah, well, thank you so much for stopping by. Brandon Arnold, Executive Vice President of the National Taxpayers Union. Can you tell people where they can find out more about what you're doing out there and what you guys are saying and researching?
Yeah, absolutely. Our website is ntu.org. That's for nationaltaxpayersunion.org. We're on all the social media platforms, of course, so check us out on YouTube, X, anywhere that you spend time looking on social media. We are there. Read our stuff. Check out our videos. We'd love to get your support and your comments and feedback.
All right. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us tonight. Good luck out there in Triple B America, and we'll talk to you again later. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much.